the business plan that I'm doing out in the DMV, I could replicate that in LA. Property values are higher. At the time they were building the SoFi Stadium, so I saw opportunity. Came out here, partnered with a guy. That guy, I realized that this guy wasn't who he said he was. Things of that nature. We didn't make money. I was working with this guy for like 11 months and made $2,500 total.
Hello and welcome to the Leave Your Legacy Show. I am your host, Kenyon Murray, and today's guest, I got to tell you, now here's a guy that has transformed who he was into the person that he is, and we'll get into that, but I am so happy to have Javorn Farrell on the show today. Javorn, thanks for coming on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll get to how you and I connected, and I mean, it was kind of I don't know, I wouldn't say a meetings of the mind, but the right people connected us, and so we'll get to that. But I want to talk about this now. Where you and I really connected is that you were a baller too, right? You're a top 50 player in the country. So tell our audience who may not know who Javorn Farrell is and where he's from a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and as far as your playing career.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So I grew up in the DMV. Those who don't know, DC, Maryland, Virginia metro area. Lived in both Northern Virginia and Maryland for most of my adolescence. Played basketball in one of the toughest conferences in the country, the WCAC, the Washington Catholic Athletic Conference, where you have the DeMathas, Gonzagas, Paul VI, those schools. And then from there, transferred to Riverdale Baptist for my last 2 years or last year and a half. And you have guys that came out of there like, Michael Beasley went there, Nolan Smith, some of those guys as well. So that's my adolescent career, my youth career. And I played for DC Assault, which actually just made a comeback this year on the New Balance circuit. But we were a powerhouse back in the day. And now they're making their comeback. So I played with that program. And from there, I had some decent offers coming out, but I decided to go the mid-major route and went to UMass because we had the story of a top 25 recruiting class, and they were calling us the Fine Five, moniker of the Fab Five. So we figured that we would go in and we'll turn the program back around to what it was in the 90s, and even though it didn't feel like it, we ultimately did, right? We got them back to the tournament. The year after I graduated, they were back in the tournament. We built the program up from no postseason appearances our first 2 years into the last 2 years we were at UMass. We, NIT Final Four run, and then NIT top seed the following year. And then my senior year, I got hurt. I had a injury-riddled career in college, but I sat out my senior year and used that opportunity to transfer. So graduated, then transferred, and did grad school down at UT RGV. And back then it was UT Pan American. And, did well, got all conference honors, and it was, it wasn't the way that I planned my college career going, especially coming out as a top 50 player and things of that nature. But, you live and you learn. And then from there, I went on and I had some learning lessons with agents and different things, and ended up in Denmark and loved the country, loved the playing experience there, loved the team that I played for there. But, it's not where I should have or would have ended up had I knew what I knew now back then. And ultimately that led to my retirement after playing one season, just because of injuries and facilities and things of that nature. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. And then from there, I transitioned into the real world, and I guess we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah. Transitioning into the real world is not just a thing that college kids thinks about. I think it may be a little bit easier for them as opposed to an athlete, but we'll get into that. But you mentioned injuries, right? And a lot of times when you see high level players or highly ranked players, maybe not, live up to what everybody else's standards are because of the ranking that you got. They played a huge part in, your basketball career. Can you tell us just a little bit about, I know a little bit, but like, what was the injury that really you felt kind of derailed who you were as a basketball player?
I think both of the major injuries that I had derailed me as a player. I played my whole freshman year with the torn labrum in my hip.
Mm,
So I wasn't able to really practice. I really only practiced when we had like more than 2 days in between games,
mm,
and that was just difficult. Getting wrapped up every game, getting cortisone shots. I think I got two that year. And just going through, making it through that season and fighting through that season, ultimately earning a starting spot my freshman year. And it was for me. It's I had the whole summer now. Instead of working out, I'm rehabbing because I had surgery and at the end of April. So I'm rehabbing. I'm not able to be in the gym the way that I would probably have been otherwise.
mhm,
And so then going into my sophomore season, I had a really, really bad ankle sprain. And bad ankle sprain, I was supposed to be out 6 to 8 weeks. This happened probably a week or two before the season started.
mhm,
And, being young, being stubborn, and then also like being a loyal person, like for your teammates and wanting to be there for the brotherhood and all that. I sucked up some of the pain. I'm like, I just pop some pain pills and we'll go out
mhm.
there and we'll play. Eventually got cortisone shots to make my way through the season. And again, sophomore year, didn't really practice much, especially if it was only 2 days between games. I doing a lot of rehab on the sideline, doing a lot of pool work. So a lot
Mhm.
of on court stuff. My first 2 years was non-existent, like outside of just games. And then from from there, as I mentioned, I got cortisone shots and just to numb the foot essentially and be able to play through. And then from there, I go into my junior year. I'm doing because again, I don't feel my foot. I'm
Mhm.
doing 2 a days and 3 a days in the summertime, and now I'm working the way that I feel like I intended to work from the beginning of my college career, and I'm working. I'm in the gym. I'm putting in the work, and junior year started out really good, and at the end of my junior year, though, I find out that I don't find it out. My athletic trainer's like, hey, like let's see what's going on. We realized that I wasn't able to move my foot inward,
Mm.
and they're like, hey, like it might be nerve damage in your back. Like they're running all sorts of tests on me, and they ultimately find out like that I ruptured a tendon in my foot over the course of that 2 year period that I
Wow.
was playing on it over my sophomore and junior year. And during that time, that was a really big one because especially even transferring that late in your career back then too, it was a little bit different. Um, Not really being able to be as effective, but I think during that whole season of my junior year, I think for me, I think the butting heads with coaches derailed it a little bit more
Yeah.
than the actual injury.
Mhm.
Because even with the pain and everything, I was still able to go out and perform. I was able to put in work over the summer, going into my junior year, and prior to the surgery going into my senior year, I was able to do that. But yeah, I think it was more so like a lot of behind the scenes and issues with coaches and stuff. But it happens.
Yeah, yeah. We won't stay on it too long, but I do want to touch on it a little bit. Like, when you go from high school to college, if you've been on varsity, whatever, 3, 4 years, however many, you find a bond with that high school coach. He's been there for a long time, and that kind of thing. Obviously, you went to a high school with a lot of tradition, and then you go to college, and you talked about the brotherhood. So, do you feel fighting through the pain that you were fighting through? When you say brotherhood, did you push all that aside because of what you felt obligated to the team, or was it to the coach? Because some people look at, well, the coach gave you the opportunity, you should be loyal to the coach, but then you brought up like, but these are my boys, we came in as the fine five. Like, so what was it for you that just put you in a place where I'm going to play through what I have to play through because I want to be there for who?
That's a really good question. um, and as I think about it, because I don't think I've ever thought about it like that deeply before.
Hmm.
But I think it was for not letting down anyone. Like the whole team, the whole program. Going into like my sophomore year, I was the second leading scorer, second in assists, third in rebounds. So I was a big part of the team.
Hmm.
So like not letting the guys down, not letting my coach down. My coach trusted me a lot that sophomore year. Well, the whole coaching staff at that point trusted me a lot. So I had a big responsibility. So and then also the way we came out the gate as well. Like at the time, I think it was like the best start in UMass history. When
Hmm.
I think we started out 7-0 or 8-0 or something like that. And like, it was like the hottest start we got out to in a while. So it was just like, we have this momentum. I don't want to let the guys down. And the guys is like, for me, I think it was everyone. It was everyone that was part of the program.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah. No, it wasn't. I didn't want it to be anything that threw anybody under the bus, but I just wanted to ask because some dudes would be like, "I'll run through the wall for my guys," but that coach, I'm just not feeling them. But I do want to transition. So yeah, yeah, right. So you played 1 year professional basketball, and then you decide to retire. And one of the quotes I want to go to that you brought up was this. You said. Oh, where is it at? You said you had to live in a gap. Live in a gap. That was one, we'll get to the book, but one of the quotes from the book said you had to live in a gap. What did living in a gap look like for you?
And post playing,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was it was difficult because like for me, I knew that I was at like my peak of at that point. I felt like I was the best basketball player I've ever been.
Hmm.
Um, but then also I knew that I was worth more than I was being offered. And I
Hmm.
also realized that I couldn't go back over there and play for that amount of money and get the athletic training treatment that I was receiving and
Hmm.
be sustainable. So understanding all of that and knowing that, hey, I'm the best basketball player that I've ever been. I could have walked in any gym and you could have asked me to play anybody one on one, and I'd have been 100% confident that I would have beat them, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so that being this and having my identity wrapped up in that basketball player and knowing what I am at that point, to now I'm over here entering this professional world where I'm at a computer a few hours a day, and it's you have people who other people around who they've been working for many years. They've built a resume. They have experience in these different things that
Hmm.
I don't know anything about that. I'm over here. Most of the news, what I talk about, what I look at it, especially at that time, is basketball, right? So
Right.
that's my world, and I'm over here interacting with people from a completely different world who's not fully entrenched the way that I was. So I think that's the gap that's being referred to in that stage. But yeah, that was a difficult time.
Yeah, yeah, no, and sometimes it happens early, sometimes it happens late. The former athletes, myself being one of those that was still holding on to certain dreams I had that really wasn't what God had in store for me. So I had to pivot big time. But let's talk about that. So you are from the East Coast, and then you're in LA now. And one of the stories you told me about was there was a time where you were actually living in your car. Like for anybody to think about it, hey, top 50 player, he played overseas, he's super smart, very charismatic. How does somebody like Javorn Farrell end up living out of his car trying to figure out this thing we call life?
Um, a couple of things. I think part of it is stubbornness as well, right? Because I was in LA. I could have went back home, right? I knew
Right.
that like my parents were home. I knew that I had a home that I could go to. At
Mm-hmm.
the same time, I was an adult. I'm 20 at the time. What was I? 26, 27, maybe 20, and 26, 27 around that. And I didn't want to go back home. I knew that I had to figure it out. And it was similar to that was similar to in college when I told you I was butting heads with a coach.
Yeah.
the very first thing I did, I called my mom when I got kicked out of the film session, and I called my mom, and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. Um, but in that same moment, I realized like like they can't do anything.
Yeah.
I got to figure this out. I got to endure. I got to go through this adversity. However long this adversity is, I got to figure it out. And I just got to lock in. And, I was messed up mentally during that college basketball situation for about
Mhm.
2 weeks. And then after that 2 weeks, I snapped out of it. I'm like, yo, I'm going to kill these dudes in practice every day. And when my time comes, I'm going to be ready. Sure enough, postseason comes and I'm playing 30 minutes a game again.
Mhm.
And, I'm playing well. But, take that same mindset to when I'm here in LA. So the way that I got to LA, I started doing real estate. I'm like, hey, what I'm the business plan that I'm doing out in the DMV, I could replicate that in LA. Property values are higher. At the time they were building the SoFi Stadium, so I saw opportunity. Came out here, partnered with a guy. That guy, I realized that this guy wasn't who he said he was.
Mhm.
Things of that nature. We didn't make money. I was working with this guy for like 11 months and made $2,500 total
Wow.
for those 11 months. Right. So, eventually I'm unable to pay my rent at the house that I
Mhm.
was living in. I got put out of there, and then I moved my stuff into the guy's office that I was working with, and he didn't know. I just had it locked up in like a specific place, and then I would go there. I would sleep, shower in the morning out of like the sink and things like that, and then he found out one evening I was out, and then he was in the office and he saw some of my stuff there. He was like, "Hey, are you living here?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, I don't really have anywhere to go. We haven't been making money. And he was like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, can you get your stuff out by the end of the weekend?"
Wow.
Right. And this had to be like, this was in November. This was around like the time of my birthday, because my birthday is November 11th. I got kicked out of my apartment about a week after after my birthday. And then, he found out this stuff around like November ish or
Wow.
December. And, that happens. And I just, pack up everything that was in the office and put it in everything that I could take and put it in the car.
Yeah.
Even to this day, I don't have like, I had a TV there, a bunch of shoes there, and like they're still there or wherever he put them since. But um,
Wow.
ended up in my car, and during that time, I was just like figuring it out. I'm applying to jobs. I let my mom know the situation. I never let her know that I was in my car during that time. I
Mm.
just
Gotcha.
let her know, hey, I'm trying to figure out like, I'm Airbnb-ing. And like when I did get enough money from the job that I was working, I ended up, getting an Airbnb for a couple of nights or things like that. But I was in my car for until, um, what was that? Probably until like March or April-ish.
Oh, wow.
But again, I was like, made a little money one week from this sales job that I was working to get an Airbnb.
Yeah.
But then again, that same mindset of like, hey, like no one's coming to save you. Like, how are we gonna figure this out? So I was working a direct sales job. The guys that were running the company, I'm like, these guys are sharp, but I feel like I'm better, right? Like it's
Mhm.
just like
Yeah.
I'm competitive. I feel like I'm better. So it was me, another guy in the office, two other guys in the office, and we were like killing it in the sales part. And I'm like, yo, we could do this. We could start our own company. We could do the same things they're doing, and we can make the money that they're making.
Mhm.
I ended up moving in with one of these guys, sleeping on his couch for about 5 months before I ended up getting my own place. But we started our company. We ended up doing like 750K in revenue that first year.
Wow.
But even though we did all that revenue, like we didn't make much because we took out crazy loans,
Yeah.
predatory loans. We're
Right.
paying these things back. But it was a great experience, and it was able, like, I picked myself up, right? It
Yeah.
was like, hey, I have to figure this out. And I was able to. And then eventually I pivoted back into real estate. But that
Yeah.
was, yeah, crazy
That's
times.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Yeah, yes, definitely ups and downs and winding roads and everything. But hey, we're going to talk about this. So you got this book, Game on Game, the playbook for life beyond the game, and you and I have talked a little bit because there's things that we're going to do in my program that I think really echo what the book is for. So tell our listeners, our viewers, a little bit about the inspiration for Game on Game. I think they kind of have an idea of what it is, but how the idea of the book came to fruition. And now, like I said, you're out there, book tours and all that kind of stuff, signing books all over the country now. So yeah, so fill our audience in.
Yeah. So the idea behind Game on Game, it came to me as I was just regular life, and it was put on my heart. And I'm just like, I was telling one of my friends, like, hey, I'm thinking about, giving information that I wish that I had to athletes going through their journey, just because, I know that I'm mentally tough, and I know that I am, I have, God bless me with just a mindset to persevere, and, and I have a little bit of intelligence and things like that. But I'm like, hey, I understand that I know people who aren't as mentally tough, right? And I know people who have gone through some of these things. I know people who made it to the NBA that have gone through some of these things, right? So where's the guidance? Where's the help for us to just not when you get to the NBA or when you go play professionally or when you're transitioning out, but to hold our hand along the way to when we decide, like, hey, I'm going to go and pursue this sport, whether it's basketball, football, track, whatever it is, I'm going to pursue this thing at a high level. What does it look like at 12 years old, 13 years old? What does my day look like? What are the things that I should be focusing on? How should I be building out my support system? Who's in my network that, I'm not even really paying attention to that could be beneficial to me down the line, and not even really just beneficial to you, but like, who should I be building rapport with along the, like, from middle school to high school to college to then professionally? Because as athletes, we don't even realize it while we're going through it, but we have access to so many different people, so many different things and opportunities. And it's just like, we're just so hyper focused on the sport, which is good, but it's like, hey, this is going to eventually come to an end. Whether you're, again, like whether you're LeBron or whether you're the guy who just plays high level high school sports and then you have to retire. Because even those guys that play high level high school, whether it's football, volleyball, basketball, it's like their identity is still athlete, right? Because they're training all year round. And even if they don't get a D1 scholarship and they go D2, that's still part of their identity. So how do we help these people, get the most that they can from the sport, but also be able to apply it to their life journey? And for me, it was like, I didn't really want to write a book. So I told my friend about it. One day he just forced me to, like, he came over my house and like, he took me to, I think it was like Party City or the dollar store. We bought poster boards and he forced me to do an outline. So we worked on the outline and then he stuck it up on my wall in my place. And I didn't do anything with that outline for months. And it was just sitting there. And then one day I just started writing. And then I wrote I think I wrote like the introduction maybe, and that was it. And I just left it. And then there was a point in my real estate career where I just felt like I wanted to do more impactful work. We work with a lot of like high net worth individuals and a family office where most of what we do is not necessarily impactful. It's, we do apartment buildings and class A retail, class B retail centers. But during that time, I'm like, how can I create impact? Because that's always been on my heart, creating impact. So I just started writing. I saw that I kept seeing this outline. So I just started writing. And that was like during this time where I felt like drained and stressed, like this gave me life. So I was like, all right, let me just continue. Every day I went home, I just wrote it. And that thing was finished in like 2 to 3 months. Wow. The first draft was finished in like 2 to 3 months. So yeah, that's how that ended up coming about. But, it's just a resource for us to go through our journeys. Cause I know that we all need it.
Yeah, no doubt, man. It is, you said, like, how many times do you still hear, if somebody doesn't know your background, but, you talk and they're like, oh, you played basketball, where'd you play? And they tell you, and they're like, oh man, first thing they say is, you still look like you can go. Right. Like, you're just like, so even to this day, I'm sitting here, I'm 52 years old. Listen, I didn't play basketball for 10 years and I decided to in January, then I strained my Achilles. So I'm done. But it's been one of those things where like people are like, oh, okay, Murray, you still look like you can, go one-on-one. I was like, yeah, looks can be deceiving, but it's just, that's how they identify us, right? They remember us. Like you'll like anybody that knows you from back home will always be like, he was a hooper. He was a hooper, regardless of what you do now, which you're doing amazing things. in the real estate world, but they see you as that and it never goes away. So I can also see like moving out of that environment. Like I never went back to Battle Creek, Michigan. You know what I mean? Because it would have been either there was going to be those people that said, oh man, so proud of you, this, that, and the other thing. But they're going to be like, bro, you was like a top 50 player, or like me, you was a McDonald's All-American, you didn't make it to the league, And so you have to deal with that. And that does mess with your psyche. It's like, where's my value? Where's my worth? And I know I think you shared with me like one of the module titles or something along the lines of who am I without the jersey or something like that, because people always see you in that. When you talk about that specifically, who are you without the jersey? Like, what's your message to athletes there?
So that's actually a really good question. My message to athletes there is funny because I was at the Black Student Athlete Summit last week and I talked about it. Is like, yes, athlete is going to be part of your identity. Like we understand that, like you just said, you go back home, everyone's going to see you as an athlete. That's part of the reason why I left. But everyone's going to see you as that. And that it's cool that athlete is part of your identity, but it can't be your whole identity, because when it does become your whole identity, then outcomes, your athletic performance then determines how you feel, how you respond to certain situations, right? If you're having for example, if you're a basketball player and you have 2 or 3 30-point games in a row, you're going to be really, really high over these next few days or the next few weeks. You might be a little arrogant. I know I was, right? I get, and that's like, these are different things that I recognize now looking back. It's like, yeah, I was arrogant. But if then like what happens, like in my situation, what happens when you get benched, right? What happens when an injury happens? Like now, do you now slip into depression because of that? Because you don't know what else to do. You don't know who you are. So you can't, my message to athletes when it comes to identity is you can't let athlete be who you are. It can be part of who you are, but it can't be all of who you are, because performance is going to ultimately dictate how you feel, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah. And we talk about injuries too. Like, I'm just, going through this year with Keegan and Chris, he missed some games too because of some injuries, but Keegan missed a lot. He only played 23 games this year. And so, he literally was like, Dad, I'm so bored. Like whether he would text me or call me, I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, what do you think? I'm like, I know. And so Keegan could have slipped into something else, but I think because he and his brother, we definitely wanted balance with them, right? Like they made the decision to focus on basketball. We said, but we don't want that to be everything. So I think they have been able to have hobbies that take away maybe some of that, that space where you're not at practice or you're not playing games. Keegan picked up a very interesting hobby of building Legos. And I was like, you can have worse addictions or worse hobbies than buying Legos. But, I love that. What you said, athlete can be part of who you are, not who you are as a whole. So how did you transition out of that thought process? I mean, your story was one that was there. It seemed like there was a lot of like gut punches for you, but what was the process like for you to really hone in on, okay, that's part of who I am, but it's not who I am. And then you evolved into this newer version of self.
So again, I feel like always, like I mentioned in the book, I mentioned in some of the articles that I write as well, that I always knew that I had interest in other things, right? Whether it be acting, whether it be, being a GM, or whether it be sports broadcast, things of that nature. Like I had interest in all of these different things. My parents never told me I can't do anything else. However, I saw, when you're a high level athlete and you're being nationally recognized for it, like you're like, oh, I'm the way out for the family, right? And then you start developing this hero complex, right? And that hero complex ultimately leads you to say like, hey, this is the way that I'm going to get everybody out. So then even though I knew that I had interest in other things coming up, and I was never forced to play basketball by my parents, I feel like I put that pressure on myself because of all of the early attention that I was getting at 11, 12 years old, right? So I never gave myself that permission, but I think it is important for the adults in the room to give though, to give student athletes that permission to say, hey, like explore that guitar or explore that,
Hmm.
that thing. But to answer your question, how did I end up like separating that identity is one, like, yes, I always knew, but then the more I like try to be the hero, the more my identity became just basketball. So
Hmm.
getting out of it, learning to apply a lot of those skills that I developed as an athlete to the
Hmm.
real world. Because when I got into real estate, I was obviously a novice, right? I had no idea what was going on, especially when I got into commercial real estate.
Right.
What, 7, 8 years ago? 7 years ago. I was a complete novice. I had no idea what a cap rate was. I didn't know a lot of these different terms that they were throwing around. But in basketball, it's like, hey, I knew that in basketball, I knew I had God given talent, right?
Hmm.
But I also knew that, hey, when I get to college, like I need to put in this work because my talent gets me here, but like the additional work is what's gonna. And same thing in real estate, right? Like you had like the charisma got me here, the ability to problem solve got me here. I'm just like God has given me the ability to be good at math, right? So that
Yeah.
got me here. But then fine tuning those skills the same way that I did in basketball. Learning how to apply that same mindset of like drilling things, whether it's
Hmm.
building financial models, but it's just literally understanding like, hey, you have to be able to, like with the identity that I developed in an athlete, it allows me to then go ahead and develop myself as a person because you figure out what are the different things that I like or what are the different things that I want to do. And then you just apply the same things you did to become a decent athlete to, to your overall life and you become a more well-rounded person.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome stuff right there. And we as athletes always can pinpoint a couple people in our life that have been influential. And one of the things that I personally try to do is, you know, pass those things forward to whoever I'm coaching or who I'm working with. And so mentoring people is a big part of what I try to do now. Has mentoring become, with even maybe even before the book, is mentoring something that you lean into when it comes to this? Because like you said, there's a lot of, you put a lot in here that you wish someone had told you or you had awareness of before. So have you become a mentor to other people, and how does that make you feel when you're passing on information that you think will probably change their lives?
So yes, to answer your question, prior to the book, I was doing mentorship work. As I mentioned, like one of the, like in my heart, God has put it on my heart to, hey, like your job is to impact people.
Mm-hmm.
And my first job out of basketball, I was working with at-risk youth, and most of them weren't athletes, but I was the individual that was in charge of one. I had a little caseload of like five to seven at-risk youth, but then from there, I was in charge of like creating activities. Most of these kids never been outside of the city, outside of DC before. Right.
Right.
So even taking them across the bridge to Virginia, they're like, oh, wow, this is what Virginia looks like. Mind you,
Right.
it's 5, 10 minutes down the street. But then one of like my favorite things that I did, I took these kids, and when I say at-risk youth, like these were some of the highest intensity cases in the city.
Okay.
Um, but I took some of these kids. I used relationships that I had. I had a friend that was coaching at Central Florida at the time. Took them down to Central Florida.
Oh wow.
We're playing 3-on-3 in their gym that they play games in. Right.
Yeah.
And most of these kids didn't play basketball, but just being able to walk on a college campus and interact with a college coach and do that.
Hmm.
And then I took them to Disney World Sports. That's where we had nationals when I was young. Right. So like
Yeah.
take them to all these places that they wouldn't, they never even thought they would probably, that they never even knew about. Right. But now
Right.
you open up their eyes to something even bigger. And then, that's like motivation. And that motivated me to continue like seeing that impact and motivated me to want to do that more. So
Yeah.
when that ultimately led to me obviously coaching, right? So I've been coaching, and a lot of how I coach is similar. I take bits and pieces from the different coaches that I had, and
Hmm.
I think about like what I would have wanted, but then also like my AAU coach and high school coach, my last high school coach that I had. I gave him an acknowledgement in the book, but he was amazing when it came to just being a stand-up guy and not necessarily always saying like, hey, this is what you need to do, but just the way that he modeled his life. And, it's like this dude was just, had a family, had two boys that both played. He was a coach. He also worked in the school system, did a bunch of different things. But it's like, this dude everyone respects him everywhere he goes. He's
Mm-hmm.
able to impart wisdom on the youth. Like he's coached guys like Steve Francis and the Michael Beasleys and these guys, right? So like, it's like, but you would never know that
Right.
because he's not like this boisterous or braggadocious guy. But yeah, so mentoring is something that happened before Game on Game, and now we are incorporating that into Game on Game. And how does that make me feel? To answer that question, it makes me feel amazing, especially like when I had the launch a couple of weeks ago. I had some of the youth that I coach, and to just hear some of the things that they've been saying, I've had some kids say, "Man, like you should be a psychologist, man. The way you've helped me through some of these situations,
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
just makes me feel really good because I did have someone like that, and being able to like replicate that and just
Mhm.
pay it forward to the next generation, I think is super, super important."
Yeah, no, no, it is, man. And I think in a world where it seems like, I mean, obviously we're with through technology, we're more connected than we ever have been. But I think that in certain aspects of our life and our, just living, we're so disconnected, and I think anybody that has an ability to connect to kids, I think that God given gift should be utilized as a mentor in those kind of spaces, even though people don't feel like you said, you don't have a psychology degree, but because you had that lived experience and you connected with kids, you were able to help them through that. And I think more people need to lean into their God given abilities like that because, in a world that's so fast paced and so much stuff going on, like honestly, people just want to be seen and they want to be appreciated. And we have to be more present and direct when we have interactions, especially with youth today. So, you and I met through, I mean, it's kind of a business thing. And I remember when I went out to LA and we met for lunch. And I don't know how much time you had blocked off that day, but I think we talked about like the business part of it for about 20 minutes. And then the rest of the time was all about personal stuff for sure. And so, I was just fascinated by your story. But one of the things that fascinated me was one, how you met your wife. And so I want you to give her a shout out on this because with what you do is so high paced with what she does, her profession is very high paced as well. You got to find someone that aligns with you, not only, it's the physical attraction, 9 times out of 10 when we started out.
Right.
But as you get into a relationship is like, okay, like how do we balance each other out? How does she help me? How do I help her? So tell us a little bit about your beautiful wife and how you guys in your world like really make time for each other, because that's so important with the divorce rate of 54% or
Right.
something like that in the United States. So give us a little mentoring on that, my guy.
So, I mean, I'm still new to this. I'm not even a year in. The proposal anniversary is tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be 10 months in as of tomorrow. But how we met, the funny thing is we met in person, and at the time, like neither one of us was looking for each other. She was in a relationship. I don't know whether or not I was in a relationship, but we're both Caribbean American. Both of our parents have Caribbean roots, and my family's first generation. My parents are first generation. Well, no, they were immigrants. I'm first generation born.
Okay.
Her father was first generation born.
Okay.
So he was born in New York, but his parents are from the Caribbean as well. So we both like going to Caribbean festivals, carnivals, and things of that nature. So anytime we see like our flag, which is St. Kitts and Nevis, but we're from the smaller of the two, Nevis, every time we see our flag, we make it a point to approach the person and just see if we're
Mhm.
related or it's 12,000 people on the island.
Right,
Right.
right,
So it's like, hey, you might be a cousin or like, someone in my family knows you.
right, right.
Um, so my cousin at the time, like not at the time, but my cousin, that day he went over, he was, oh, that girl has an Eva's flag. Like, let's go say what's up. So he's talking to her like, hey, like letting her know who our family is. And then he follows her on Instagram. Um, that day they follow each other. And come to find out at that time, I think we found out like she went to like middle school with our first cousins,
Hmm.
and it's like wow, because my wife, she lived there in Nevis for 7 years of her life, from 8 to 15. She was living in Nevis, so she went to middle school with some of my first cousins, and then fast forward probably 3 or 4 years later, she's not in a relationship anymore. I wasn't in a relationship. I see this woman on Instagram and I see like 4 or 5 of my cousins following her. I'm like, I send a DM to I send a text to my cousin. I'm like, hey, who's this girl? Is this one of our cousins from Nevis? Because like all of my cousins are following her. And he's like, no,
Uh,
that's the girl that we met at Carnival a few years back. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I messaged her and I was like, hey, we
mhm.
met a few years ago, yada, yada, yada. And then, I think we probably talked for a few weeks and then we went out to dinner. And then the rest is history. That dinner was what, August 12th, 2021?
Hmm.
Yeah. So then the rest is history. We got engaged on June 2nd, 2024 and married August 2nd, 2025.
Okay.
So
Wow,
but
that's
how do we
awesome.
balance each other out? And
Yeah.
so she's an attorney. She's in corporate law and she works with investment funds, investment management funds. And there are days where she's working from 6:30 a.m. to 1:30 a.m.
Oof.
Yeah. There are days where she's yeah, she has a crazy schedule, and she has to bill 2,000 hours a year. So 2,000 hours a year is 40 hours a week billing. And that
Yeah.
doesn't go into, business development, all that other stuff that they have
Right,
to do.
right.
So, and then I obviously real estate and then building out game on game, writing the book, all that stuff. So, we make it a point to like every night before we go to sleep, we make it a point to ask each other like, hey, what's your favorite thing that happened today? What's the least favorite thing that happened today? And what's something that I did that you liked? Right. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's like a little connection point that we have every day, regardless. Even if we're like when I was in Oregon and she was here in LA, well, she came to Oregon for one night, but then she came back because she had to work, obviously. But
Yeah,
we
right.
do that even when we're away from each other. And then also like we're intentional about just like hey, we're both really busy right now, so like
Hmm.
let's figure out a day that we could go get dinner or whatever it may be. Like we're going to the Dallas Wings and Los Angeles Sparks game this upcoming Friday.
Oh, okay.
Right, yeah,
Gotcha.
so like little date nights here and there, but we balance each other out because one, like I'm more laid back, I'm more chill, I'm like
Mhm.
letting things happen, right? I let things, oftentimes let things happen. All right, cool. If it's
Yeah,
meant to be, it's meant to be.
right.
She makes things happen.
I
it's,
gotcha.
it's a difference. She's more intense, more aggressive. Like obviously, when it comes to like sports and things, if I'm competing, then I'm
Right, right,
obviously intense and I'm in it. But she's like more aggressive, and more structured.
right.
Right? She has the plan. Like, hey, like when I told her about game on game and building it out
Yeah.
into a whole ecosystem versus just a book, she said, "Well, what's your plan? Show me your plan." Right? So, and I literally had to like show her like, hey, these are the different arms of it. We'll have these different things, and this we can have a curriculum, workshops, program, all these different things. So she's like,
Yeah.
okay, I like this. And then like she's just been like we both understand that we're in busy seasons. Um,
Hmm.
and we understand like, hey, we might be busy for a while, but we still it's intentional. We have to be intentional about taking that time to connect, whether it's in dates, whether it's 10 minutes at the end of the day, whether it's, we do couples sessions every now and again. So whether
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
that, like it's important to stay connected. But she definitely does a good job of making me like have to like be a little bit more structured, right?
Right, right.
Because I'm more so just like, hey, like, I go with the most of the things I do it on the fly. And she's like, no,
Yeah.
like we need a plan. So I've been having to plan things out a lot. over the
Yeah,
past
yeah.
5 years.
That's awesome, man. No, you do. Yeah, continue to date. That's one of the things, almost 28 years married now for us. Like
Oof.
we've been able to, really kind of rekindle that.
Mhm.
And being empty nesters makes it a little bit easier as well. But yeah, man, just, yeah, continue to date, continue to connect because it is, man. There's so many things in this world that can distract us. And usually it's the people that are closest to us that feel the largest impact of that distraction. So I applaud you, brother. Yeah, continue to stay connected to your lovely wife. Now, before we go, I always do kind of a rapid fire question thing. And I know, yeah, you guys are busy, but, I kind of feel that you guys, when you can, you like to travel. So what is a bucket list trip for you and your wife?
Ooh, rapid fire. Let's see. Um, Bucket list, probably Brazil. We're doing it this year,
Okay.
but yeah,
Okay.
Brazil.
All right, where are you going to go? Like do you have stuff planned, like a certain city? Or are you kind of traveling around to multiple cities? What are you doing?
We're gonna do Sao Paulo and Rio.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, nice,
yeah.
nice. I met a couple in Curacao from Brazil, and I'm not saying I think because they're from Brazil, they're like, oh, you don't want to go to Sao Paulo. You want to come down. It's like y'all live in this little old town, like, overlooking the water or whatever. Like, yeah, I know you probably like that a little
Right,
bit better. But I go when Americans travel, they go into places that they hear about, Rio and
right.
Sao Paulo. Like that's where we go. So no, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm excited for you guys. But hey, tell our listeners, tell our viewers where they can find Game on Game, and if there's anything coming up that you're really excited about in reference to the book and the modules and everything that you're putting together.
Yeah, for sure. So where can we find Game on Game? Game on Game is available on Amazon. The You can get the ebook, the paperback, or the hardcover on Amazon. And it's also available on the Game on Game website, which redirects you to Amazon, and it's gameongamefoundation.org. And so what do we have coming up for Game on Game? We have some where we just put together some student and parent workshops for the
Mm-hmm.
summer. So those student and parent workshops, they're going to be held in person in Santa Monica, and we're doing 4 student workshops over the course of June till August, so the end of June to early August before the kids go back into school, and they're going to be based around handling pressure, identity, mental health,
Mm-hmm.
recruiting, all these different things that middle school and high school kids are going through right now. And then also we're
Yep.
going to do 2 workshops, one in June and one in August for the parents, to help them learn again with the recruiting, how to help manage their kids through their seasons, whether it's basketball, football, or whatever. And then also uh, teaching parents how to be supportive versus it being an additional level of stress or pressure. So I think that's a big one. And so we're working on that right now. So over the next, I've been posting that on social media for the past week. So we'll get some signups here over the next couple of weeks, and then we might even add a virtual one or
Okay.
two student workshops and parent workshops. We're working on a lot on the back end as well. We're also working on our Life Game podcast. We're
Okay.
gonna have to get you guys on at some point, but
Yeah. Yeah.
we've
No doubt.
uh, we've already recorded 3 episodes. This year we'll release 6. Our first one is actually going to be released on June 27th.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be releasing one a month, the last Saturday of each month at 10 a.m. From June through November. And
Yeah.
we're bringing that podcast is we basically talk about the intersection of sports education and life.
Mm-hmm.
So those are important. We're going to have some really good guests, and we'll start promoting that this month as well.
Okay.
And then we have a lot going on the back end that I want to tell you about, but I'm not
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
to yet. But I'll tell
Okay.
you about it offline, obviously. But
All
yeah, I'm not
right.
going to tell you about online. But it's yeah, we have a lot going on with the curriculum, different workshops, different programming that we're doing, different parent groups, different college groups. So
Mm-hmm.
partnerships. I think I mentioned to you before with the Flag Football League, the Entertainment
Yep.
Football League.
Yep.
So yeah, we have that partnership going. Doing some stuff with NIL. So yeah, we're right now we are in the building phase where we are creating different partnerships, and and a lot of the things that we're doing right now, like even the workshops, we're piloting those things
Yeah.
for two reasons. One, to get out there and to impact student athletes and their parents, and athletes, not just student athletes, but athletes as a whole and their parents. And then also to show proof of concept to these different
Mhm.
institutions that we're going to, whether it's school districts or universities or whatever. But yeah, we're doing a lot right now. And again, offline, I'll tell you a little bit more of what we're doing, because it's some exciting things. And actually want your opinion, and I want you to, I want you to pick that apart a little bit for me.
Yeah, gotcha. No, I'm looking forward to it because you and I have already talked about a partnership with our basketball program as well as this thing moves forward. So tell our audience, social media, where can they find you?
Social media, you can find me at first name, last name on Instagram. And I think that's the only social media I have for like me personally.
Okay.
And on Facebook, same first name, last name. Javorn, last name Farrell. And but Game on Game, it's everywhere on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's Game on Game
Mhm.
Foundation. It's
Okay.
at Game on Game Foundation on all those, and on LinkedIn it's just Game on Game Foundation. Same with Facebook.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey man, I thank you so much for coming on the show today. You are doing amazing work and trying to help me out with my project here a little bit too. So not only are you building you doing this for yourself, but you helping out people like me all day, every day as well when it comes to building projects and things like that. So I want to say thank you for coming on today.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, man. This was dope.
Awesome. Now, if you learned anything today or you feel like you should share this with somebody, so go ahead and do it. Share it, subscribe, give us a like, and then hit that notification button so you know when the next episode is going to air. And until next time, let's keep connecting. The Leave Your Legacy podcast is brought to you by Covenant Workplace Solutions. Covenant is a full-service workplace mental health and wellness partner, helping organizations across the country strengthen the lives of their employees and the families they go home to every day. Your employee assistance program should raise the bar, not simply check the box. And Storyline Multimedia. Storyline is an Iowa City-based media company that creates high-quality video, photo, and audio for local businesses. They produce a number of great podcasts, including this one. If you're interested in sharing your story, please contact them at storylinemultimedia.com. And remember, your story matters.